Hey guys, Sean Darling here again, and this time as we advance our stupidly simple character, today we're going to be giving him a little bit of a face and some controls. Just stupidly simple ones though, so check it out.
We're gonna learn animation in Moho and animate everything in Moho. It's easier than using any yo-yo, yeah. Now it's time to learn to use Moho.
Alright, here we are in Moho, and when we last left off, we had created this character that had the ability to move around and tilt his head, bend his body, things like that. A couple things we still need to do are probably some controls or things to ground him and stuff. But for now, we're gonna do a couple of simple controls with some face parts because he's a little uncharacteristic, even though if he's stupid. So we're gonna just zoom in here, and I'm gonna move my little pop outs here. And within this bone layer, we're going to make sure we select the select bone tool, and we're going to click on the background. And now we're going to add a new bone. Why not? All right, what we're going to do now is right here above the head layer is we're going to select it and select new layer and add a vector layer. This is going to be our mouth. I'm just going to have one simple mouth for this particular layer. And what I want to do is just come in here and just give it probably just 3 dots, 3 points, and select enter. We need to change our brush stroke here. So let me just select that real quick. And all right. And we have that color. So if you happen to have that, just change the stroke color to black. And now we're going to change the width down to something a little more and mouth like perhaps 9 here. And that's going to be it for the moment. And now I want to create another layer here. Vector. We're going to call this eye right. And we're just going to come over here to our draw shapes tool and make sure we have circles selected. And we're just going to create a circle like this. Want to make sure that we go to our select shape tool and select it and turn on, make sure our fill is a black color. You do not have to have the stroke on. If you do, it's going to make it a bigger circle than we actually are wanting. So just leave that off for now. And if we need to, we can go in here and move it around or make that bigger or smaller. But this one's going to be eye right. We're going to come over here to the layers, right click and duplicate that layer. Immediately rename that to eye left. And we're going to drag that over the other side. So now we have our mouth and eyes. And what we need to do is make sure we bind these to the head bone. So I'm going to go back to our bone layer. I'm going to select the eye left, the eye right, and the mouth. And we're going to select our bind layer button, and we're going to click on the head. So now when we go back to our bone layer and move our head bone, all of those things will now move with our head. Very simple. We're going to add a control here, something very, very simple. All right, so something I wanted to show you guys how to do is be able to make these eyes open and close and make the mouth change shape. So this is another very, very simple thing for your character. We're going to use what's called a switch layer, and that consists of a folder or a group having different images in it that represent the eyes and mouth, let's say, in different states. So for eye left here, we're actually going to create a new layer, vector, and we're going to call this blink left. Blink left. And I'm going to temporarily turn off the left eye. And what I want to do is create another one here that's going to be basically what the eye would look like when it's closed. So I'm just going to make 3 little points here and press enter. And now we will have what we will use as our closed eye. And I'm going to right click that and duplicate it. We're going to immediately name this blink right. I'm going to drag it down to above the right eye. So where we have this order here. And on that blink right, we're going to just grab the layer right here on our transform layer. We're going to move that over to right in the middle of that eye. Let's correct the blink left to make it a little bit better. And you can see our center is not correct here. So what we're going to do is click on the set origin tool and just click it in the center of the blinked eye and the center of the open eye. And we'll do the same thing for the other two. So the closed eye and the open eye. Matter of fact, I think you should do this for the mouth as well. Just click on it and set the origin using the set origin tool to be right in the center of the mouth. All right. So now that that is done, we have all of our eyes on screen at the same time. We don't want that. We're going to click on the blink left and shift click on the blink. In the eye left. We're going to right click and go to group with selection. That's going to make a group of those. We're going to call this eye left. And right on this side here, we're going to right click this and come down to convert to switch. Now that'll make sure that only one of these is open at a time. Right now we have the blink open because the this eye is closed. You only want to switch this from this group layer here, from this folder layer. So if you want this to be open, you would right click it and go to the eye and set the blink, and it will open that and hide the other one, as you can see. So we're going to come down here to the blink right and shift click eye right. We're going to right click, go to group with selection, rename this immediately to eye right. And we're going to right click on that one and convert to switch. Once again, when you change these to open and close, you want to make sure you're doing it on this folder level, not these here. So right click eye right, and now your eye is back open. So anytime we want to change those, we can just right click on that folder and pick which one we want. That's the manual way of doing it. If you guys want to do it a little bit cooler, we can actually make a control for it. And that's what I suggest doing. So coming back to our bone layer, we're going to select our select bone tool, click on the background to make sure no other bones are selected. And we're going to here, click on add bone. And we're going to just draw a bone like so. And we're going to call this blink. There are numerous ways to do blinking eyes, and this is probably the simplest. We're also going to come over here and select the select bone tool. We're going to make sure we check show label so we can see what this control does. All right, so we have that blink bone. Now, before we create an action for it, we need to make sure we go in and that we're on our bone layer and we're on frame 0. And we're going to come in here to bone strength and make sure we turn that off. Otherwise, the moving of this bone will affect all kinds of stuff we don't want it to. So we're just going to drag that to the left, and now it's ready to go. So with that on frame 0, we are on our bone layer. We're going to go to the actions menu, and we're going to click on a new action. It should say blink. We're going to say OK. We get this blue timeline. And this is just the timeline for just this bone doing this action. So this is not your main timeline. We will jump in and out of this timeline to adjust these actions and the keyframes that need to be on there to make this action happen. And then we'll jump back out to our main timeline where we need to by double clicking this main line button right here, or this main line title. But for now, we're going to come over and we're going to grab our playhead and move this up to frame 24. I'm just picking an arbitrary amount of frames. You can pick as many as you need. It honestly doesn't matter. But what we're doing here is giving ourselves an amount of frames to work within for if we need to put in extra keyframes or anything like that along the way. But if you don't need very many, we don't even need 24 to do this particular action, but I'm just giving us that for leeway and to explain how it works. But the amount doesn't matter. You could have 100 here if you need a lot of different keyframes to make that action happen or whatever you need. It's very, very cool that you can do that. We're going to go here to our transform bone tool. We're going to take this bone and we're going to move it over a little to the left like this. Now by doing that, on frame 24, we've created a new keyframe. And what that means is at frame 24, this bone is going to be in this position. If we were to scrub this back, you'll see that bone moves to make sure that on frame 0, it's in the original position. So you get the idea. That's how that works. We also need to make sure we select these frames. I'm just marquee selecting and clicking and dragging from the open space. We need to make sure when they're highlighted that we go and select linear. This means they don't slow up or speed up or slow down or anything during the course of the action. They remain linear and at a constant speed. So we're going to come back up here to 24. That's stating when this bone is in this position, something's going to happen. So I want to make sure that the eye changes, the eye right and left. They're going to change from the eye open to the blink state. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to each layer. We're going to go to eye left, remember the group layer, and we're going to choose what we want it to become. So eye close. We're going to do the same thing for eye right. We're going to right click and go to blink right. So eye close, blink right, whichever it is. And we're going to come down and you can see that once it reaches that state here, that they do close. Now you don't have to have that happen at 24. You can actually move these back to frame 12 if you want. Go back to the other one from over here and have it be frame 12 if you want. Like I said, so as these get to frame 12, they're closed if that is what you want. It doesn't matter. Just put it where it needs to go, where you want it to be. But we said at 24, our bone is going to be right here, which that's fine. It doesn't mean that your keyframe needs to be there. However, it's a little more understandable if it is. I think they're fine. I'm going to make sure here, and I'm going to go ahead and leave them switching at 12, just so I have a little leeway. It doesn't really matter, but you get the idea, I guess, that at frame 12, these are going to switch over, but our bone can go all the way to frame 24. But that's just showing you that you can have that choice. So as I move this, you can see they close, they open, and that's going to be our blink action for this bone. Something else I wanted to show is that we can put limits on this bone to where it cannot be drugged this far. It cannot be drugged beyond where we want it to be at frame 24. And I'll show you how to do that now. So you just come back over here and double click this main line and it'll take us back to the main timeline. That was just the timeline for the action of this bone. And you know that's what it was because it was blue. It tells you it's a different timeline. That will be what color the action timeline will be for that particular control. So now, if we were to be here, I'm just going to go to frame 1. It's best to test your animatable controls and stuff on a frame other than 0. We're just going to use our manipulate bones and grab this, and you can see that as I move this, it does in fact close and open the eyes. Okay? Now you can also see that I can pull this all the way around, which we don't really want to have happening. We want it to stop at a certain point. So we can select that bone and come up here to the select bone tool, go to our bone constraints and add what we call angle constraints. And now you can see you can set where these stop and start, which I do highly recommend. I'm going to put this one straight up and down. I'm going to put the other one about somewhere in here, making sure that it still includes that point that these open and close. But now we close this and we move that bone around. It will not move past that point, and it will not move past that point. So it's more like a little switch that has the fidelity that you want to give it. In fact, I'm going to make this a little more upright because it's just bothering me. It's a little weird. So with the select bone tool, go to bone constraints, and we'll just make this a little less constricted there at 0 to 60. We'll close, and now you can see when we manipulate it with the manipulate bones tool, we have this layer switching from open to close eyes. Very simple. Now let's do a similar thing with the mouth. Okay, now for the mouth, what we're going to do, make sure on frame 0, make sure we are on the bone layer. I'm going to create a new bone, but I'm going to click on the background to make sure nothing else is selected. We're going to click on add bone. I'm just going to go straight up here. We're going to now automatically name it as mouth. And then we're going to click on this select bone tool and turn on show label. Now what we want to do is come up to the bone menu, and we're going to come down and click on make smart bone dial. Mouth, -70, +70, 48. These are the settings I'm going to use. And then I'm going to click OK. Now, as this playhead is drug over, you can see it moves to the left side, which we're going to use for our non-smiley face. So I'm going to come down to the mouth, click that layer, and on that frame 48, you can see that's where our playhead is. We're going to come up here and click and shift click on these two outer dots. And I'm just going to pull those down. I'm going to select the center dot. Let's select that center point, and then I'm going to go in my curvature tool. And I'm just going to drag that to the right to give that more of a nice curve. Then let's highlight everything here and just click and drag everything and change those right there to linear up here. Okay. Now you can see that when that moves, that's what's going to happen. Now we're going to come over here to mouth 2 because it creates two different states here. One for the left, one for the right. We're going to double click on mouth 2. We're going to go up to frame 48, allowing this bone to lean all the way over to the right. And we're going to grab those outer points again, shift click them, and move those both up higher. And then I'm going to click on the center one with my curvature tool here. And just with the center one, I'm going to click and drag that to the right to give that more of a nice curved shape. Then we're going to highlight select and drag all of the keyframes here, and we're going to make those linear. Now, we're going to double click back to main line. And when I move this should smile. We're going to go back here to the bone layer, and we're going to grab our manipulate bones tool. I'm just going to drag to the left to get the frowny face, and drag to the right for the happy face. Very simple. The blink. Cool. And that's the way we add our facial features to our stupidly simple character. Thanks for watching.